A very good morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you are in the world, obviously. Extending a warm welcome to you all to this webinar about supply chain orchestration, obviously. My name is Bram van Londen, responsible for sales within the company Orchestra. Have a vast background in logistics and supply chain. I would say my entire career, from TNT, where I did transition management, change management, even outsourcing, to Siemens Logistics, and now with Orchestra responsible for sales. And with me today, and I'm really pleased about that, I have my dear colleague Sid, responsible for our product portfolio. Sid, welcome. Maybe for
Thanks,
those
Bram.
that do not know you, can you give a bit of background to yourself, please?
Definitely, definitely. Thanks, Bram, for having me here. My name is Siddharth Tripathi. So, for the sake of ease of pronunciation, Sid. My background is in data science and industrial engineering. Yeah, I've been working in supply chain logistics technology for the past decade almost. Started my career in consulting, then moved to a early stage at that point early stage startup called Freight Hub. Now it's called Photo, and then from there sort of met the founder of Orchestra, and yeah, have been leading the product side of Orchestra for the past 3 years. So yeah, happy to be here, Bram, and yeah, let's talk technology. Let's talk technology into software for supply chain.
Yeah, cool. Thanks very much, Sid, and again, welcome in this session. So maybe to immediately kickstart it with the main question, and especially from a product perspective, what for you is supply chain orchestration, and why do you believe, or why does Orchestra believe yeah, so important for businesses nowadays?
Yeah, no, definitely. Let's set the stage for supply chain orchestration, right? And I want to start with the why. The what is sort of a longer explanation, right? The why is rather straightforward. If you're not doing supply chain orchestration, you're basically losing money, right? Either you're facing losses in one way or the other, or you're facing opportunity costs that you haven't yet realized, right? So if you're not doing supply chain orchestration, you're losing money. That's my key message already for the audience here, right? So what is it? It's basically having three key elements of your supply chain in one single interface, in one single platform, right? Having execution of your supply chain in one single place, having visibility into your supply chain in one single place, and ultimately having your analytics around the first two in one single place, right? Running your supply chain from one platform instead of utilizing multiple systems with divided data and divided information. That is what supply chain orchestration is. And I want to say it one more time. If you're not doing it, you're basically losing out, you know. Um, and maybe that's the technologist's perspective, right? That's what I think from a platform perspective, from a product perspective. But I wanna hear from you as well, Bram, in terms of pain points that you hear from customers in the market, right? Around these topics of costs, around these topics of having varied data, slash something else. What would be the key pain points that you hear from supply chain operators these days, and maybe a bit about how can Orchestra help them in steering challenges.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think if I take my own conversations with our customers and our new leads, so to say, being responsible for sales, I think the common denominator is they are quite, they are never greenfield, yeah. So they have existing landscapes, they have existing customer base, they have existing issues, I would say, yeah. But if you look at the history of those companies, normally they are very well equipped when it comes to, for instance, transport management, or when it comes to purchase order management, or when it comes to demand versus supply kind of management. Yeah, but the issue they really face nowadays is how does it all come together? Yeah, and how do I derive yeah, visibility out of that, or how do I make the impact of one versus the other visible? Yeah, and how do I derive the right knowledge and decision making out of that? And I think especially for the ones that are more international on the way, or have their growth path through mergers and acquisitions, their supply chain becomes more and more complex, and requests, I would say, flexibility. Yeah, so they often face changes in their demand, or possibilities in how they can ship, and
Mm-hmm.
therefore they need visibility or analytics, or whatever you would like to call it, a technology that helps them in making the right decisions in a fast way, yeah, to be
Mm-hmm.
responsive towards the market demand. So this is where I would say the integration of technology is one of the biggest pain points these companies have to yeah, come to the next step in their maturity level, so to say. So this is typically where platforms like Orchestra, yeah, with their integration technology, with their analytics, do come in. Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
to answer your question in that sense, there I see the main pain points. How do I derive knowledge as an overlayer over my already existing
Mm-hmm.
platform? Yeah.
So basically, how do I do orchestration to begin with, right? What are the
Yeah.
things that I need to do? Where do I start?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
That's
definitely.
that's I
Yeah.
imagine being a problem, that where do I even start?
Yeah, I mean, maybe we come to it a bit
Mhm,
later, but it can be quite overwhelming. Yeah, if you say we start
mhm,
orchestration, people often think,
mhm.
one, we need to start big. Yeah, we have to approach it
Exactly.
all at once. I mean, but then it
Exactly.
comes down to vision. Yeah, where do I want to go, and how do I chop
Yeah.
that into smaller pieces that are actually digestible? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's what the main importance is when it comes to their challenges. Yeah.
Mhm,
So maybe a question back then, Sid. Yeah, to overcome the challenges that I just mentioned. Yeah, and with the fact that supply chains, especially for the companies that I mentioned, the bigger conglomerates, so to say, through mergers and acquisitions, are growing. So have complex supply chains and are quite dynamic in that sense. Um, how does technology help them? Yeah, and what kind of technology could help them in yeah, overcoming those challenges, and set them for the
right.
future? So,
Right. So three. I love the number three, the magic of three. Three key elements in terms of emerging technologies. Rather, I would say three key outcomes of technologies that businesses we see more and more pursuing, and rightfully so, right? The first one I touched upon when I was explaining orchestration, right? The single platform approach, the single interface approach, having one place where all activities related to your supply chain are happening, right? Different user groups doing different activities, consuming different pieces of information, and conducting different sides of their businesses in one single place, in one single platform. It doesn't have to be the same interface, I would say, right? But the platform ultimately has to be the same, right? A unified platform. Um, Secondly, it's data management, right? multiple advancements over the past couple of decades have been done when it comes to data management. I wouldn't go into the specifics of that piece because it very quickly becomes very technical, right? But the outcome for the business there is that you in the background need to have a way of making sure that that data that ultimately feeds that unified platform is made available through different methods, through different ways of aggregation, and is feeding that unified platform for you to be able to ultimately do all those three pieces in that one single place, right? So, unified platform, data management, and followed by a business intelligence practice, right? Business intelligence in itself has been, again, a piece of technology that has, I mean, as a business function that has always existed, right? When it comes to technology, there have been advancements over advancements around it, but the utility of it is what makes it not what makes now more than ever the most important piece when it comes to gaining efficiencies and doing that supply chain orchestration ultimately. um, Having a practice of business intelligence when it comes to every single piece of your supply chain management, that's something that we see as quintessential, to be able to do that orchestration and to have that orchestration mindset, instead of pursuing siloed, let's say, processes, right? And this is where maybe the last piece, from my perspective, the last piece is where I have seen the most amount of gaps. But I want to hear your perspective as well, because you're the one who's talking to the most number of people in the field, in the boardrooms. What gaps do you observe, Ram, when it comes to these three sides of the technology, right? Um, how and let's get back to that piece of how does a company even start, right? What
Mhm.
first steps would you suggest to our listeners here, when it comes to going into supply chain orchestration slash what gaps do you observe currently on your customer side?
Yeah, I think one main sentence or phrase comes into mind, yeah, and that is looking over the fence, yeah. So
Mhm.
naturally, when you see, I touched upon it earlier, departments are responsible for logistics, for instance, yeah. So you have a vast interest in standardizing that and organizing and managing that, yeah, through a warehouse management system or a transport management system. So you are set for your particular step within the supply chain, yeah. And then it comes down to looking over that fence. But to be fairly honest, only looking over a fence doesn't bring you anything, yeah. So then you see a problem, but you still, and I think that's the main portion, need to be able to execute that, yeah. So
Mhm.
I think touching upon how to do it, you should start small, yeah. But what we often suggest to our customers, and but also my discussions with them are is how do I showcase that I deliver value towards my company, yeah.
Mhm.
And all too often we start with a small portion through analytics, yeah. As an example, to showcase, listen, if you look at your supply of your goods the next weeks, you are good, but in week 6, 7, 8, you might start to run through trouble. Yeah, you can use that in your discussions with your company. Yeah, so how do I replenish? Is then one example. Yeah, and out of that,
Mhm.
you slowly start building up that solution towards it, and you look if that is successful over the next fence. Yeah, so
Mhm.
my advice would be not to look over too many fences in one go. Look over one
Yeah.
or two and find that one that you can execute and show value in. Yeah.
Mhm.
And the example I just gave, I would say, and this is already difficult enough. Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, often the people I speak to in a particular responsibility are also incentivized to only look
Exactly.
at that particular responsibility. Yeah, so you can't blame them. Yeah,
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
I think the way how companies look at orchestration should therefore also change. Yeah, how do we all together win? Yeah, and not only for the small portion. And I think if you change that mindset, that through examples and through real life cases, that helps the company overall. I would say, yeah. So be actionable and ensure that it doesn't come across as too overwhelming. Is my advice, yeah. So maybe to tie into that, how do you and I can speak maybe a bit later about my own experience there. How do you see the future of orchestration in from again maybe a product perspective, and what are the current technology trends maybe, or current visions that you want to support the product with?
Right. I want to answer this with, without using a lot of buzzwords, right? We've all heard those buzzwords going around that you need AI, you need blockchain, you need X, you need Y. But the truth remains that the single biggest trend, yeah, the single biggest technology trend that is going to affect supply chain orchestration is AI, right? And I want to give some examples of how we're trying to. I'm going to come to another example in a second, but let's first talk about AI, right? What's the role of AI in making sure your supply chain orchestration is as futures proof as it gets, right? So there's multiple aspects within which we see artificial intelligence sort of playing a major role when it comes to supply chain operators gaining efficiencies, and when it comes to, let's say, boardrooms ensuring that they're ultimately orchestrating their supply chain, right? The first, or the let's say the most obvious one that has been there for since forever is automations and making sure that redundant tasks that are currently being done by people, who have to repeatedly send the same document with the same information to the same parties, those kind of redundant tasks get automated, and there's an AI sort of keeping track of when that action needs to be taken, what needs to be part of that action when it comes to information, who needs to receive that information, and at what time frame, and thereafter just executing those tasks on queues based on rules, based on triggers that are depending on, of course, business processes and business requirements. But those triggers get activated, and AI is sort of doing it for you instead of you having a whole team or a back office, to sort of for sort of doing those tasks, right? So task automation and automation of redundant tasks is the biggest, let's say, biggest area that I see AI playing a role in. It already is the case at Orchestra, right? So our platform is utilizing some of these capabilities. Of course, we're not claiming that we have created the next chat GPT, but we do have our own artificial intelligence system that enables our platform to do these kind of automations and to help our customers gain efficiency in those tasks that are, like I said, redundant at the moment. The second area, and that's the area that we are slowly getting into as well, is sort of customer support, right? Servicing your customer, letting your customer know information that already exists in your system. It just has to be bundled up and sent to the customer at the right time / answer to the customer when asked. That's another area that AI already is playing a huge role. I mean, we see the level of automation large language models can bring when it comes to generating responses and generating, let's say, answers to questions that are asked of them. We're utilizing those capabilities already, but as we go along, I see that becoming more and more mainstream, in the sense that logistics service providers would need to have it as a given, right? There won't be even a possibility of having teams of people, sitting there just to answer customer questions and customer requests, right? So
Yeah.
two key areas where AI is already playing a role, and slash that role will become more and more mainstream from our perspective, is automation of redundant tasks and automation of customer service requests slash questions coming from your customers, right? So that's on the AI side when it comes to the future and trends, right? The other trend that we have been observing, and that has really helped us take our customers to the next level, and we plan on doubling down on that side, is real time visibility via IoT devices, right? Over the past decade, or maybe decade and a half, with the rise of 4G and thereafter 5G, the connectivity costs have dramatically gone down, right? At the same time, manufacturing efficiencies have been made on devices that can basically tell you in real time what's happening with your shipment, what's happening with your goods that are inside those shipments, what's going on with your orders ultimately, and what's the latest about them, right? That has been really taking the center stage more and more, like I said, because of the connectivity costs going down dramatically, right? Orchestra itself has deployed IoT devices for its customers in the market, and the results are completely astonishing when it comes to the customer knowing the right piece of information at the right time, and hence not needing email threads after email threads to just ask about what's the status, where is my shipment, huh? So when it comes to, and tying this back to your original question about the key trends and their evolution, um, a key trend that I predict, and it's my humble opinion, um, in supply chain technology in general, is the downfall, or sort of the stagnation, I would say, of these real time track and trace and visibility providers, right? We see
Hmm.
that happening already for the topmost player. I'm not going to name them in our webinar. We see that happening already, and rightfully so, right? It's because of this reason, because of connectivity now becoming so cheap, that these real-time track and trace and visibility providers would either have to completely modify their business model,
Yeah.
or face the consequences, so to say, in the market, because yeah, connectivity now is cheaper than ever, and it's only going to become more and more cheap, right? So a trend that I see in the future is every supply chain operator asking for that real-time visibility via devices that are on board.
Hmm.
Again, this is not something that is new. This is not something that was born 2 years ago. This has been the case. I mean, container tracking, we all know those heavy-duty trackers that were back in the day put on containers, right, to know where your container is. That has only become cheaper and cheaper and more usable, and that trend shall continue. And I see that becoming a central ask from supply chain operators, that hey, I need that real-time visibility via that device. LSP, how cheaply can you do it for me? Slash, can you do it for free? Those
Yeah.
kind of questions will start coming up a decade down the line. That it has to be part of my
Perfect.
supply chain spend, part of my
Yeah.
service, ultimately. Um, so a long answer, when it comes to that trend, because that's an area that's of course super interesting always, right? Maybe now I want to hear the same side, or the flip side of that coin, from your perspective as well. When discussing these technology adoptions, right? These can easily become big talk and elaborate
Mm.
discussions. But what are some of the factors that you see or hear from your customers when you discuss these trends, and when you tell them that, hey, look, this is coming, or it's already there, you better jump on board? What are the main concerns that you hear from the shippers? What are some of the key questions that they ask you, maybe long-term ones, and then also looking at the next year? What do you see as the biggest hurdles that the shippers face at the moment, in terms of the adoption?
Yeah. Thanks for that question, Sid. I think the 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 main topic topics that our customers approach us with is visibility. Yeah. So how do I ensure end-to-end visibility? And with that, the main concern of actually becoming actionable there is integration. Yeah. So when you look at how our customers often describe their current landscape, it's very scattered. Yeah. They have maybe an ERP system in one country that is different from a system in the other, or they have multiple warehouse management systems whatsoever. But the question is, how do I now all integrate that and harmonize that data and derive the knowledge out of that? Yeah. So all too often, those customers come to us. They say we are trying to do a very big implementation with the known names in, for instance, the ERP world or the WMS world. And don't get me wrong, yeah, they all have the right to stay there. Yeah, they're very good at what they should be doing. But if you want to look over that next step, these are not typically the companies you want to ask to do that kind of implementation because it's big, it's expensive, and it is not tailor-made for you as a customer. Yeah, it's a standard kind of product that they try to then tailor towards you, which is difficult. Yeah, and which often comes with high cost and long implementation time. So this is what we typically see with companies approaching us. They are looking for something more agile, and I would say, how could I best describe it? Maybe unbiased, yeah. So if you look at our platform, it doesn't matter for us, yeah, whom you want to integrate with, as long
The
as it holds the
neutrality of it.
the
The neutrality
neutrality
of
is maybe
things.
the right word for that. Yeah, if you go to the bigger implementation companies, yeah, they come with their own tools and say, listen, this is what we can do for you. Yeah, on top of of the core. And what you want as especially in this dynamic environment called supply chain, you want to be quick and lean. Yeah, you want to be flexible and adaptive towards what your customers at that moment ask for you. And this is very difficult. I'm not saying it's not doable, but very difficult to do with bigger parties. So I think therefore the future for companies like Orchestra, yeah, is quite bright, I believe. Yeah, so lean, being able to be flexible, being neutral in what you have. Yeah, not trying to replace systems, but try to make use of the invest you already made into those systems and derive either cost cutting out of that, or not losing money, but actually trying to build up revenue by integrating those systems and use it as an argument towards your customers. Listen, we have a full insight over what is happening towards your shipments, yeah, and even more so through our collaboration with the suppliers, with you as a customer, or all the parties involved in that particular supply chain. We can even help you solving those issues throughout the shipping or throughout the warehousing of your goods. Yeah. So I think that is when it comes to implementation and technology and integration, the biggest factors that concern the decision makers. It's speed, in terms of being able to answer the customer requests, and obviously cost. Yeah, showing that return on invest quickly and not having implementations of a year, yeah, or 9 months or whatsoever. Yeah, just quickly adapt to the market, to the demand of the market is, I think. Yeah, what helps those customers with these kind of flexible platforms, you know. So that's what I hear from the maybe you, because I know you are involved in a couple of very interesting projects at the moment. Maybe you can share some examples that either talk towards this or are different in their nature. but share some
Mhm.
example, yeah, where those platforms like ours, yeah, deliver the value that customers are looking for, and maybe what are the takeaways that I can then use in my arguments towards, in my discussions towards our customers.
Right. So I would state maybe two customer stories to answer that, right? To answer some that from my opinion is the best way uh, to share real world examples is to tell some customer stories, right? Not to future customers and also to the audience listening in here today, right? The first one is our biggest customer, the main customer that I've been sort of working on over the past couple of quarters. It's an LSP called OIA Global. Yeah, it's a mid tending towards large logistics service provider that has both 3PL, 4PL arms. It provides much more than just 3PL and 4PL services. It's a company that is serving the biggest companies in the world when it comes to I wouldn't name their customers here, but you can imagine the biggest FMCGs in the world. One of the biggest sports goods and apparel providers of the world is their customer, right? So we serve OIA as their main technology provider, right?
Mhm.
And therein we do what I just explained before in terms of supply chain orchestration, right? We give them one single interface, we do their data augmentation and sort of their data manipulation and thereafter data storage to serve that one single platform. They had an existing system before, but it was let's say it was more slow than it needed to be, slash it was outdated in many sort of aspects. Therein came Orchestra to replace that system and give them much more than that original system could offer. What our system ultimately does for OIA themselves is to enable them on that execution piece, especially when it comes to collaboration, right? Making sure the right user groups, the right parties are able to take the right actions on shipment files, on customs files, on order execution side as well. And at the same time, a key user group, which is their customers, being able to get that visibility slash participate in that execution as well, and at the end consume analytics around their supply chain from that one single interface that is Orchestra, right? So that's one key real world example where not just a shipper but a party that is serving shippers is sort of benefiting from the technology that Orchestra provides, right? Um, the other real world example that comes to my mind is for a real for a small company called Bridgestone. Yeah? That for them we were able to execute via technology a concept called DC bypass. Yeah,
Mhm.
um, I wouldn't name the areas and the business entities within which we implemented this, of course, but the idea of DC, so distribution center bypass, right? The idea there is that you procure from your vendors, and instead of
Mhm.
procuring from the vendors and taking that to a distribution center and then from there taking to an end store and then distributing to your end customers, you completely skip that distribution center part and take it directly to the stores, hence saving a lot of costs, right? Identifying this cost saving opportunity and identifying the areas and let's say the businesses where even this is valid was a huge challenge because of the distributed data and the volume of data that had to be churned to be able to give you that recommendation on hey, here you could do DC bypass, right? They were able to do that via Orchestra, and yeah, in the process they were able to, again, I wouldn't say the amount, but they were able to save a significant amount when it comes to their logistics spend, right? Um, yeah, these are two key examples that come to my mind where
Yeah.
Orchestra's technology sort of directly helps customers in terms of gaining efficiencies and in terms of ultimately saving costs, right? Um,
I think,
yeah.
Sid, it's the kind of perfect examples when you look at the second one really saying looking over that fence, yeah. So it's a relatively smaller implementation compared to the first one. So how can we quickly derive value out of a platform or out of analytics and build from that? Where the first one is really and this obviously also went through a different project stages. I wasn't personally involved in all of that, but I'm sure it evolved. But where you have a bigger vision, so to say, yeah, and so all the way up to supporting 4PL offerings towards the customer. So it's a nice a balance where with the second example you start relatively small and derive value, and the first one being more strategic and really future minded, so to say. Yeah, so that's interesting. And I think if you look at the future, yeah. So for how do we help in it's closing of year. So how do we help
Exactly.
businesses in 2025? I think
Exactly.
these kind of examples, it all comes down to knowledge and expertise. Yeah. So what I recognize in the orchestra team. Yeah. So all of our colleagues come from a supply chain background, may it be in technology, may it be in business or with LSPs. And I think nowadays you can only solve supply chain puzzles, or in general any puzzle, yeah, when you have the right knowledge out of that industry. Yeah, industries became so complex, so diverse. You need to have the knowledge and expertise in order to be able to advise your customer for the right technology, but also for taking those right steps. So if I would take a step into next year, yeah, I think this is definitely something. If you are looking for parties that could help you, yeah, I think find the ones that are flexible, find the ones that are, like I said, unbiased, yeah, but you called it neutral, and that are quite knowledgeable in the area, yeah, and yeah, I'm not unbiased personally because I'm sales, yeah. Orchestra could be one of those parties in either purchase order management or shipment order management and the entire consolidation around that. Through visibility, through analytics, and I think that could help really our customers and future customers for 2025 and ahead. I would say, yeah. So I think these showcases, these cases that you showed, help in that kind of mindset of it. It can be orchestration, but doesn't necessarily need to be that big in the first step. Yeah, start small, start smart, look over that fence, and above all, come in action mode. Yeah, instead of only looking. Yeah, and I think that's what helps people in their implementations and ultimately the success. I think we rather come to a close of this webinar. Maybe
Yeah.
Sid, first of all, thank you very much. I would say, yeah, for your insights. I think they are very valuable. Also, I learned a few new things, so that's always good. If you have some closing words, maybe for this session and to the people listening.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot, Bram. It's always a great conversation, right? Especially end of the year, looking towards starting a new quarter, new year. It's always the best time to sort of plan,
Yeah.
and sort of establish a plan. And yeah, my parting message would be quite simple. Let's have a conversation. Yeah, let's have a conversation. Let's try and understand what that starting point for you could be, because there's always one, right? And when it comes to implementation of technology in supply chain, yeah, Orchestra can be absolutely your right partner.